Yeah. How about that? All right. Dr. Alex Vindman is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. He previously served as Director for European Affairs on the National Security Council. Before that, he served as the Political Military Affairs Officer for Russia for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and as an attaché at the U.S. embassies in Moscow and Kiev. While on the Joint Staff, he authored the National Military Strategy for Russia. He earned a master's from Harvard University and a master's and a doctorate from Johns Hopkins, where he was a senior fellow. Dr. Vindman leads the national security think tank Institute for Informed America Leadership and the nonprofit Here Right Now Matters Foundation, and was a former executive board member for the Renewed Democracy Initiative, a senior fellow at the Kettering Foundation, and a senior advisor to Vote Vets. Please give a warm welcome to candidate for U.S. Senate, Alex Vindman. Wait.
So I appreciate the warm welcome to St. John's. It really, frankly, provided an excuse for me to do a bucket list item. I got a chance to go to the fort at St. Augustine. That was fantastic. And I got a chance to walk some of the old town. We really have a jewel here in St. Augustine. I think not enough people know about it. So beautiful. I'm going to be back with my family at some point. So this morning we started outside of a gate before Colorado, one of the outlying communities, and we worked our way all to Nassau, and then we'll be heading back home tonight. On this weekend, I'll be in the Keys, so the furthest northeast point and the furthest southwest point. That's what we're doing. We're across the state. It's pretty awesome to be out on the campaign trail, trying to reach 23 million folks. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My family came to the U.S. in 1979 when I was 4 years old. We fled the Soviet Union as Jewish refugees, fleeing anti-Semitism. Arrived in New York with $750 in my dad's pocket. I was still tiny, but it was my dad, my older brother, there we go. There we go. All right. So it was my dad, my older brother, twin brother, and my grandmother, my dad's mother-in-law that he didn't get along with. It was that package of five of us, because my mom passed away from cancer just a few months before, so Dad was the primary caregiver for us. We landed in New York. Dad was 47 years old. His first job was hauling furniture in a secondhand furniture store at the age of 47. He didn't have command of the English language when he landed, so he worked exceptionally hard hauling the furniture, but also trying to get some language under his belt. He had these index cards that he tells my daughter about. 2,000 index cards, words somehow organized into coherent sentences, and he passed the civil service exam in New York, landed a union job. That union job was the starting point for our American dream story. That union job was the entry point to the middle class. That union job was the entry point for us to go from refugee kids to the White House. So it provided a safe working environment, which was essential. Our dad was our primary caregiver. He was working in the tunnel systems under New York. That's something that unions deliver. That job was healthcare for us, lots of visits to the emergency rooms in those early years. That job was guaranteed time and a half, double time when he worked on weekends. He worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. In those first year and a half roughly, he remarried, and we got a mom at it that raised us, and a bonus brother out of that deal. So that became a family of 6. And all four of us boys served in the military. We all felt a strong pull to be able to give back to a country that brought us in and welcomed us in. My twin brother and I, we served in the Army, and older brother served in the reserves, and we had a black sheep stepbrother that served in the Marine Corps. My career was as an infantry officer, airborne ranger. I served in combat and postings all along around the world. In 2004, I was 10 months into dating my wife when I was deployed to Iraq. And she ended up getting, within the first weeks, she ended up getting that awful call that loved ones dread. I was wounded by a roadside bomb in Iraq, an Iranian roadside bomb that was designed to puncture through US armor. I walked away from that. I carry shrapnel with me in my leg, took wounds to my shoulder and my leg. But the Marines sitting next to me, they were severely wounded and they were evac'd out of theater. I learned something about war that day. I learned about service and sacrifice. It's more than just about dollars and cents. It's about our greatest treasure, our service members. So when Ashley Moody, for the 8th time, just last week, voted to give this administration a free pass for a thoughtless, careless war of choice that's squandering our treasure, but frankly, our real treasure, which is our troops, I'm a hell no, and that pisses me off. You know, my military career was fantastic. I served in different corners of the world. At one point, my wife and I moved 11 times in 10 years. I served as an attaché, as a diplomat in embassies Kiev, Ukraine, Moscow, Russia. In the Pentagon, I wrote the book on Russia. I wrote the National Military Strategy for Russia. One of these really kind of daunting national security challenges. Another great power that's always looking to attack us, undermine us. So I crafted a strategy to address those kinds of concerns. Based on that work, I was invited to the National Security Council. And there I had an awesome responsibility to work at the highest level. I'm still getting paid as a lieutenant colonel, but working as a 3-star, convening meetings at this upper echelon to try to advance U.S. national security. And about a year into my tour, having served 20 years, presidents of both parties sworn an oath to support and defend the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic, I witnessed a president commit a corrupt act and abuse of power, and I reported it. That triggered, I testified in Congress, that triggered an impeachment of a president. It also ended my military career. So this was the campaign of harassment and retaliation, intimidation didn't allow me to continue on in uniform. So Vindmans don't tend to kind of dwell in the past. We don't look too much, probably should look more in our rearview mirror, but we're usually forward looking. So we decided to close that chapter of our life and serve in different capacity. You heard some of the things I was up to. I published a couple of books, got an advanced degree, but the big thing that I was doing is I was helping get veterans elected around the country. And to me, that was a really special task because in the military, in the Army, we talk about this, we have acronyms for everything. We talk about leadership, and that stands for loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. These are not just meaningless words. These are measuring sticks by which we measure and guide our behavior. So it's been a pleasure to get veterans elected around the country. Along the way, my wife wanted to get away from DC, get away from politics, so we moved to Florida. Yeah, life really does have a way of laughing at your plans. So we moved here about 3.5 years ago. It was my wife and my daughter. We loved it so much, I convinced my dad, a die-hard New Yorker, to leave New York and move about 10 minutes away from me in South Florida, which is great. I get to see him and mom quite a bit. But in order for him to survive on his pension, I'm paying half his rent. My daughter, she's 15. Today was her last final for freshman year. She's got 3 years left. And for me, It's terrifying that in 3 years she's going to be on the horns of a dilemma, a serious decision about what she wants to do with her life, where she wants to live. And it's getting too darn expensive in the state. Job opportunities are vanishing. She has no control over the decisions she makes over her body. That's unacceptable. So changing the direction of where we're headed in is personal. And my opponent, Ashley Moody, she's part of the reason that we're facing some of these challenges. As Attorney General, she gave a pass to the big insurance companies, and our insurance rates soared. She didn't hold their feet to the fire when they refused to pay on claims. When she got to the Senate, to be an automatic yes vote for power, that's why she's there. She didn't start delivering for the people of Florida. She engaged in stock trading to the tune of millions on insider information only Congress gets. That should be illegal. Folks should go to jail for that kind of stuff. This is a person that sits on the Health Services Committee and trades pharma stock. That's got a name. It's called corruption. All right? So we need to put a stop to that. You know, I've traveled the state pretty extensively at this point. I know that folks are tired of a broken system that delivers for power, that no matter how hard you work, you seem to be falling further and further behind. I know this because I've had over 150 trips. I've gone to places like the Villages twice. The first time was actually the morning that Donald Trump was getting ready to do his rally. I walked that line of folks waiting to get into that rally. I talked to folks in that line. Pretty sure no other candidate in the country has done that. So I've got a good sense of where folks are on the Democratic side, Independent side, and Republican side, and I'm hearing the same things. The same concerns I shared with you about my parents, the fact that it's a struggle for them to survive on a fixed income, the fact that kids are moving out of the state, the fact that you're falling further and further behind because this administration has chosen to go to war overseas that's increased gas prices significantly. It's driving up costs for everything. Folks understand that there's something wrong and that my opponent is part of the problem. So I'm feeling awesome energy across the political spectrum. Democrats ready to walk over hot coals. We've seen that happen in these special elections. Independents, definitely an avenue and a path for us to connect with independents. They're laser focused. They're not paying attention like we are. They're not necessarily, most of them are just not involved in politics the way the folks in this room might be. They're living paycheck to paycheck, living their lives and struggling, and frankly don't understand why there's a thin layer at the top that seems to be prospering and career politicians that are delivering for that layer, and everybody else seems to be falling behind. And Republicans, they're feeling some of the same pain too. So we've got a message that's connecting. I'm feeling it in different corners. I'm feeling it in fundraising. We've raised $12 million from 300,000 contributions, averaging less than $40. That's grassroots support. We're seeing it in volunteer signups. We've signed up thousands of volunteers, and I encourage all of you in here to sign up. We're seeing it in polling results. This is a neck-and-neck race. We're within the margin of error. So we're doing our part. I've got a question for you. Who in this room is going to show up and vote on Election Day? You got, maybe you're not there yet, but close. You know, we'll be there. How about who's going to bring some friends along? Who's going to bring some friends? It should be the same number of hands, all right? And I know Pam is going to, where's Pam? Don't leave, there we go. Pam is going to help organize you all, so don't leave after I'm done. Make sure you stick around and listen to her. But I'll tell you another thing you could do. You know, I'm going everywhere. I'm going ruby red to deep blue talking to folks. We're blanketing the state. We're putting the work in. Take a look at your communities. Some of these communities around here are used to be pretty tough. It's a different electorate out there. Take a note. Folks are taking down their Trump signs, all right? That's a cry for help, all right? Ask them if they want an Alex Vindman for Senate sign instead, all right? I'm Alex Vindman. I'm looking for your vote. I'm looking for you to pitch in. I'm looking for your contributions to be your U.S. Senator. Thank you. And what are your questions?
questions? Here,
Yeah.
here.
There's some more over here.
Back there.
I have one comment. My oldest son, diehard Republican, not voting. He won't vote for Democrats, but he's totally against Trump.
So we're going to try to get through. We want to be fair to everybody here. Let's see. I'll just start going through some of these. All right. There's a lot of questions. We'll see what we can do here.
Steve.
How would you work with to charge or change the attacks on the Constitution that threaten our fundamental values? So I think that's actually a fundamental. Actually, you know what, Marco, could you go through these and see if there's a way to batch them together for me? And all right. So that's an important one. I think there are two things I have to deliver in those first 2 years. This is a special election. I've got to deliver in 2 years, and then I maybe have earned my place to come back and ask for your vote for a full 6-year term. The first thing I need to do is make sure the system works as designed. We have, our founding fathers didn't necessarily foresee what's occurring now with the chief executive, but they were pretty thoughtful. They had a system of checks and balances, 3 co-equal branches. The problem is that politicians have abrogated their responsibilities. Senators and congressmen have not fulfilled their duties. There are prescriptive tasks that I have to do as a senator. That's oversight. So the abuses that we're seeing, unprecedented abuses that we're seeing from this administration, it is my job. It is not, kind of, should I do it? Maybe, maybe not. It is my job to hold the executive branch accountable. I think the powers granted to the Senate and Congress are subpoena powers, investigation powers, withholding the power of the purse, withholding funds. In the Senate, we confirm the officials that are supposed to be advancing our national security, not rubber stamping them. That's exactly what's going on now. So reasserting our constitutionally given authorities is job number one. Job number two, while they organize the questions, is going to be figuring out some relief on costs. Those are the two things I think I need to deliver. If I can't do those two things, I haven't earned my place to try to run for re-election. So what does that mean? That means we could wrestle back the power over tariffs. That's automatically a $2,500 tax refund because it's a tax to every single family. It's making sure that we reassert war powers so that you don't end up in a situation where this administration has used force on 7 different occasions, and this absurd war with Iran is driving up costs on everything. So reasserting those kinds of powers, that's actually drives costs down. And then I think there's something that some of you may have heard me talk about. We need to provide some relief on homeowners insurance. And there's a role, There's a role in the Senate. If you know, some of you know that there's a national flood insurance program that makes sure that there's a backstop for insurance companies so they could stay in high-risk areas and continue to deliver services. We need to do something big and bold with regards to national, with a safety net for big insurance companies so they stay in Florida, compete against each other to drive down costs. And I think the reason we can do that is, frankly, we're a donor state. The funds that we contribute to the federal tax coffers, they don't stay here. They get spread around the country. So my demand to my fellow senators and congressmen is we spread the wealth, we can spread the risk. Okay, go ahead.
No, it's fine. There's 3.5 million MPA voters in Florida. How do you plan to reach them?
Yep. So this is probably part of the key challenge we have here. NPAs, I think, fall in 2 different categories. One of the reasons we hear the Republicans keep talking about a $1.5 million, 1.5 person gap between Republican and Democratic registrations is actually there's been a flight from the Democratic Party. It's Democrats that have kind of left and are registered as MPAs. So they're out there, what I would consider potentially soft Democrats. That's a portion of it. The bigger part is, frankly, folks that just are not ideologically driven. They're not paying attention to party politics. They're just living their life. So for those folks, those are the hard to reach folks. Those are the folks that are living their lives. So when I say that, fundraising is important, I've raised some $12 million. I need to really raise about $50 million because we have 23 million people in 10 media markets. The bulk of those resources are actually going to go, some of it's going to go to make sure we get turnout the vote efforts, Democrats show up. But a large portion of that is going to be to say the same thing 10 times to those MPAs that are not paying attention. Hopefully they see it once or twice. And we're doing that. We're not just, this is a beautiful place. I love the warm embrace I'm getting from Democrats wherever I go. But this is a room where, a Democratic candidate has a natural kind of appeal. I'm trying to get to the villages. I'm trying to get to, MPAs that are living in different kind of worlds and Rotary clubs and environments like that to make sure I connect with them. So that's my job, is to make sure I try to hit all the different constituencies.
After so many years of the president gathering so much power, what can be done to call back power from the executive? This is from Scott.
Sorry.
No, bad time.
Stretch those questions out. All right. So it's true, but we should understand that this president has usurped authorities. Yes, there's like this expanding theory of a unitary executive where basically the executive kind of runs everything. But that has actually been a gradual slide, and now we've, in a way, fallen off the cliff. What has happened over the course of a generation or more is that we've abrogated our responsibilities, Congress, with regards to war powers. We've ceded authorities in lots of different pockets. So there are a whole group of national security-minded veterans and national security-minded leaders that see the world in much the same way I do. I think the fact is that even on the Republican side of the spectrum, they're cowardly, they're bending the knee, they're compromised. But I think they also understand in certain ways that things have gone too far. We're going to help those folks. We're going to kick some butt in the midterm elections. We're going to take power. And because we've won here in the state of Florida, in this guy's own backyard, that will show that he's exceptionally weak. And then we could start rebuilding coalitions to deliver some guardrails.
As an immigrant and refugee yourself, I assume you empathize with immigrants who have been unlawfully detained. What ideas do you have to bring Democrats and Republicans together on immigration policy?
This is another one where I tend to be pretty critical of both parties. I think, immigration is hard. Border security is hard. These issues haven't been tackled by any administration in recent history. We haven't had comprehensive immigration reform. We haven't even really had robust immigration reform in a generation, which is one of the reasons that things are, there's only so long that things could go before the gears start to grind down. I'll give you an example of why I think this is the case. When I was still an infantryman earlier in my career, I had a soldier, before we deployed to combat, he came to me and he was heartbroken. Both of his parents this was back in the 2003, 2004 period. Both of his parents were detained. His mother was able to stay. His dad was deported. Later on, this young man was killed in combat. And his dad, who was deported, wasn't able to come here for the funeral of his son. That, to me, is inhumane. So we have a lot of work to do on this. I think the bottom line is, I think there's an ability to deliver on border security, which is kind of a sovereign responsibility to understand who comes in and out of your country, but also achieve a pathway to immigration reform, a humane system, a rapid system where asylum seekers could get adjudicated quickly, where we figure out a path forward for undocumented. That's one of the things this is an issue close to home for me. This is something that I want to try to tackle. More than likely, this is probably a full 6-year term, because we know what's going to happen, where there's going to be a lot in these next 2 years with this White House. We're probably not going to make a lot of headway there. The best thing that I could probably deliver on that front is make sure that the abuses that we're seeing from this administration with regards to DHS, with regards to ICE raids, we rein those in. That's probably job number one. But the big picture agenda is to figure out comprehensive immigration reform.
This one is, what about the national debt?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think that the party that claims that they're good on national debt controls all three branches at the moment. And what we've seen is a ballooning of national debt. This is, in fact, a serious issue. It is a national security threat. We cannot keep running up our deficit and our debt because it's frankly going to affect the young folks. It's going to affect the next generations. We're going to have to make these payments eventually in installments, and that means that we dry up our defense funding, but we also are drying up Social Security. We're drying up Medicaid and Medicare programs if we don't start to figure out how to get debt on control. I've got I think, a way to get to this. Instead of giving billionaire tax cuts, why don't we close billionaire loopholes? Now, I think a fair tax system could provide relief for working people, which is we need it. People are getting crushed here. It could reduce debt, but also make sure that we close these massive gaping loopholes for the billionaire class that are not paying their fair share. So that's my solution here.
It's a good song. Will you support legislation to outlaw the effects of Citizens United?
So we received the endorsement for the End Citizens United PAC. That is a whole host of commitments to get money out of politics. Reversing or overturning the End Citizens United ruling to get these dark money groups out, to get super PACs under control, to get corporate PACs out of politics. We've signed on to the End Citizens United has a whole laundry list of reforms in terms of government reforms, court reforms that I'm signed up for. The interesting thing is the day that I received my End Citizens United endorsement, my opponent, Ashley Moody, came out on the list of most corrupt officials of 2026.
What is your current evaluation of Ukrainian prospects now that they have developed high-tech defense with drone technologies?
This is kind of my comfort food here in terms of national security and geopolitics. So, thank you. So, it's a pretty dark place when the administration sidles up to our traditional enemies, the folks that are looking to attack us, undermine us at every corner, and abandons our allies, our longstanding allies, whether Europe, fellow democracies. What is shocking about what's going on with regards to Ukraine is, in spite of the fact that we've largely abandoned them, Europe has stepped up and is supporting Ukraine. And Ukraine has achieved some interesting breakthroughs with regards to technology, and not just the technologies themselves, but how you weave them into warfare. And in spite of the fact that the US has backed off in terms of support, we still have some narrow channels of intelligence sharing. Ukraine is valiantly defending its territory, taking back territory, has liberated more territory in 2026 than Russia has taken, and is imposing massive costs on Russia. This war is increasingly untenable for Russia. So this war is increasingly untenable for Russia. There is very well a scenario in which Putin has to potentially do a mass mobilization, call up hundreds of thousands of troops to plug the holes of more troops dying than he could replace them, even though every month he brings in 30,000 troops. And so the scale of this war is pretty devastating. And I think there's a scenario in which he actually just simply runs out of steam. That could be the end of this year, it could be the end of next year, but the clock is ticking. And it's the Ukrainians that have largely delivered on this. There is a reality, frankly, in which the new Congress there's overwhelming bipartisan support to return to our traditional role of bolstering democracies, to play an active and supporting role in NATO, to support Ukraine that's fending off authoritarian regimes, And I think there's a reality in which the next Congress actually passes a law that the president can't actually override to return to form and support Ukraine. That is not a far-fetched notion. There's already that kind of momentum. I think that we could achieve that in the next Congress.
As a retired educator, I want to know, how will you work with leadership to fix the destruction we have seen at the Department of Education?
Some of my very closest relationships are with educators. I think this issue lands pretty close to home. My wife started out as a teacher in early childhood education. Her parents were teachers. Her brothers were teachers. At the national level, Randy Weingarten, the president of American Federation of Teachers, is a good friend. Her and her partner Sharon. So we have very good kind of linkages with teachers from personal level all the way to the national level. This is an issue that hits pretty close to home for me as a dad to a 15-year-old. I understand what's happening here in the state, that we've largely abandoned public school education, drained $4.1 billion from education in the state. At the national level, we've basically kind of allowed the Department of Education to wither to almost nothing. And the reverse should be happening. So my commitment is to make sure that we provide the best K through 12 education, that we expand school Head Start programs, and frankly, that we do the next level, which is frankly thinking about what do we do beyond 12th grade. I think the trades are an important place to go to, especially with an artificial intelligence revolution that's displacing lots of folks. I think figuring out solutions where we're not burdening young people with massive student loans that they carry with them for decades, that preclude them from kind of the prosperity that our generation or the older generation has achieved. So I'm very much committed to education, and I'm particularly committed to this idea that the state of Florida, as big as it is, as wealthy as it is, we should have a leading economy. We have a powerful sector with regards to trade and ports and travel and leisure, agriculture, space, aerospace, but there's a lot more we could be doing. I'm very glad that the billionaires are coming and buying $100 million mansions and paying their property taxes. I want them to move their headquarters here. I want us to have a thriving tech sector, biotech sector that makes sure that our young folks have jobs that they could do here instead of moving out of state.
What is your plan to get out the Gen Z vote?
All right, so let's see. I'm Gen X. Yeah, okay. So I'm not Gen Z. All right. Okay, fine. All right. So I think part of this is reaching folks where they live to a certain extent. I'm going to go ahead and call out my social media director, Josie, over there. She just started with us last week, and we're already seeing a massive impact. I had what I kind of jokingly refer to as a latent social media superpower. I had about 2 million followers across like all sorts of different platforms, but because I was traveling across the state and doing a whole bunch of other things, I couldn't do that. Now I've got Josie here on point. So make sure she's looking for your feedback. If there's any input that you need, track down Josie right there. But no, we're actually in this space aggressively and actively on social media in general. You could follow me on all the big platforms. We're doing the podcasts. There are tons of different podcasts. So there's the political podcasts, this kind of entertainment podcasts. We're hitting that. One of the benefits of, I guess, having a profile and appearing on Curb Your Enthusiasm a couple times is I'm able to go to different places in the state. So, for instance, we were in Jacksonville, and I did a interview with Kent Justice, which is pretty unique. Not every candidate could do that, and trying to reach as many people as possible. But we are very much focused on reaching Gen Z where they are. And then, of course, we shouldn't neglect that we've got a pretty awesome, as much as our secondary schools are getting crushed, our higher education is, in a lot of ways, it's advancing. UF is doing great, FAMU, University of Miami. We've got some pretty awesome institutions here in Florida. So reaching folks in those places is important. They're part of our circuit.
What was the feedback you got at the villages?
It was good. So Look, I went back there a second time. That's got to say something. So the first time I was there, I mainly went to try to kind of understand whether the way I was kind of communicating about the things that are important, the fact that the system is broken, that you've got career politicians delivering for power instead of for people, whether folks across the political spectrum understood that and felt it the same way, and whether in fact the costs, there's that whole other world where the world, everything's beautiful, everything's perfect, couldn't be better, thank goodness. But once you start talking to folks, that's not the reality. They're sharing the same kinds of concerns about their neighbors, their parents, under enormous pressure, living on fixed incomes, and children. This point hits home with me. So I was able to connect with folks more. In that first one, it was mostly important for me to understand how to communicate, if there was a way to even access that whole kind of layer of our electorate. On the second trip, I went there for my golf cart parade. All right, so that was awesome. There were hundreds and hundreds of people out there. There were independents for Vindman. There were Republicans for Vindman. So they're there. There were lots of folks. When we went to Nassau, packed house. Pretty much everywhere we go, we've got folks that are curious. I'd be curious to hear, are there any independents in this room? If you can, raise your hand. It's a good number of, not to single anybody out, there's a good number of independents. If please raise your, I ask you to please raise your hand if you're a Republican by chance. We've got a few of those. This is, I appreciate folks coming out to listen and see, if where you're hitting the mark with what's on your mind. And we're seeing that in a lot of different places we go. So I'm, again, very, very hopeful by what we're seeing out in the field.
This is going to be the last question. How do we get involved with and support your campaign?
Good job, Devin. All right. So there's a number of different things. I think Pam is going to be here. She's a superstar. She's going to be up here talking to you all about just in general organizing. For my campaign, you go to alexvindman.com. All right, go to alexvindman.com, and then you could take a look at my policy positions. What I'm going to deliver on crushing corruption and cutting costs. You go there and sign up to be a volunteer. We need a grassroots army. The fact is that we haven't had democratic power in the state for a while, and we need to rebuild that. And this campaign is an engine to help rebuild democratic power in the state. So volunteering through us for this campaign, but also for a whole host of other campaigns. I know that there's some candidates running for state house. I'm very much behind Project 140, which is getting a butt in competing for every state house and state senate seat, because I think we could pick up a lot of them this time. So sign up as a volunteer. And frankly, our campaign is driven by grassroots support, average less than $40. So you could contribute there too. All right, so alexvindman.com. Thank you again for your support. I'm going to stick around and do photos, but when I have to leave to head home, stick around and hear Pam.